having to do it myself. I'm excited to share with everybody on this call this process and the mindset. We're talking about running your job hunt and winning no matter what throughout that process. So there's lots of different ways that you can win on your job hunt that we'll talk about that are not getting a job offer. And when you think about those ways and you optimize for all of those possible wins, you ultimately don't really have to job hunt ever again. You end up career building, and it's much more fun. And so let's get right into it. First, my background in teaching career building is threefold. First, I built a company called Gigloft. It was a medium cost online school for amateur freelancers who wanted to build a reliable self-employment career. And we went through teaching three cohorts of total about 20 students, how to just like find their own clients and build a freelance career that they could be proud of and that could sustain them. Then I was part of the founding team at a startup called Crash, where I taught job seekers the process that you're about to learn. And by the way, if you've attended a webinar that ALV coach John has given at any point in the past, some of this stuff might be familiar to you. He comes from this world as well. He and I worked for the same CEO in different companies. And then, of course, now I'm career coaching exclusively here at Amalavita. And I'm focusing specifically on helping people who want to win jobs in the startup tech world or who want to build a more entrepreneurial career. So as we get into it, I want to start by defining the concept of a job, because we're all, like, as a society and as individuals, we're all very focused on the concept of jobs. But the typical image that might come to mind or might have come to mind up until recent times is like the classic 9-to-5 under fluorescent lights, trading hours for dollars with some faceless bureaucratic organization like Initech here. And if we really look at what the purpose of a job is and we question what that is, we realize that a job is a way to create value for a particular organization, and they define the terms. And so we as candidates try to fit within their boxes and present ourselves and vie for those same options instead of trying to approach it from a more strategic, consultative perspective, which I'll talk about. We focus on the jobs, and we know jobs are a way to make steady, predictable money, and we know we want a good career, and we suppose good careers are a series of good jobs, hopefully increasing a little in salary and title each time. And so we hunt for jobs, and we go on job boards, and we submit job applications, and we have job interviews like every other candidate out there, hoping that we'll turn one into a job offer. But the problem is, every candidate looks nearly the same, and there's usually only one position to offer, a very small number of positions to offer. So if you want to stand out and win, you have to do something different. You need a different approach, not better, different. This is where things get juicy. So if you're trying to take notes on this presentation, I'm going to pause for a minute just to make sure that you're ready to take notes. I'm going to try not to go through this stuff too fast. We're going to cover a lot of ground, and then Q&A at the end. Please, however we manage Q&A through the chat, unmuting, etc., please don't hesitate to ask your questions, because I'm sure other people will also have the same questions. Yes, Lydia.
Yeah, do we want to jump in and like give a little background on Amalavita, make sure everybody knows where we're at, encourage everybody to jump into the chat while we're getting warmed up?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So a little bit of background for everybody, because I know Jeremy just gave such an awesome teaser introduction to what we're going to be talking about today. So Amalavita is a coaching company. We have a myriad of coaches across a variety of disciplines, from life, health, leadership, and of course, career. So that is our sweet spot today, but we offer one-on-one coaching in combination with some e-coaching modules, and that really what makes us different. And like Jeremy said, we're all talking about different today. So for those of you who may not be familiar, that is what we're here for. That is what we do. I think we've got a lot of folks who have been on more than one webinar with us. So we're really happy to have you guys back. And like I said at the very beginning, we are recording. We'll be sharing all of our resources at the end. And please feel free to jump into the chat and ask any questions that you have in the chat. So I will be monitoring throughout, and we can definitely have a good discussion today. And I dropped my LinkedIn in there. Jeremy just added his. So super excited to connect with you all. Okay, is there anything else I missed, Jeremy, about how you want people to handle questions or anything like that?
No, yeah, honestly, what I've found to be most successful is if you have a question throughout, you can drop it in the chat. And Libby, if you don't mind just keeping track of that. And if it's something that you feel is like relevant to like where I'm at in the presentation, then feel free to just interrupt me. This is not rehearsed nearly as much as it is internal knowledge. So I'm happy to answer relevant questions throughout. And then for everything else, we can just like really like break it down and jam at the end of the session for however much time we have left. The presentation itself will probably go for like 15 minutes tops.
Awesome. All right. You guys ready? Let's do it. Back at you, Jeremy.
Oh, somebody said, please increase my volume. Do I sound pretty good to you, Libby?
I can hear you.
Okay. Is this obnoxious?
It is loud, but not obnoxious. You're not hurting my ears.
Okay.
You're good.
I tweaked it a tiny bit down. I sound far away. Let me make sure that I've got the right microphone on. Oh no.
I can hear you fine. So I think, okay, good. He says it's better now.
Okay, cool.
I think we're good to go.
Thank you for the feedback. Alrighty, let us get into it. Let me just move this out of my way. So, as we said, if you don't want to be one of all of these candidates vying for a few select positions, and you want to, what's happening? There we go. And you want them to pick you, you want to win these opportunities, you have to take a different approach, not just be a better candidate, not just have a better resume. It's not about better, it's about a different approach that works better, but because it's different. So I'm going to go through a series of, instead of this, do this. And again, please post specific questions that you have in the chat, and I'll answer them if I'm not about to answer them in future minutes. So let's start off. What do we normally do? We focus on job boards and we focus on the job listings that are on job boards. Instead of scrolling endlessly on job boards and focusing on those job listings where you're one of thousands of candidates, like I've mentioned, applying for every job that you think you could get, and where the only job openings that you see are the 15%-ish that companies couldn't fill through their own warm network first, focus on finding companies that inspire and excite you, regardless of whether they appear to be hiring for the role you would like. There are far more of these out there than you might realize. They're rarely all on job boards, and it's not that hard to find them. You just have to know where. So for example, Crunchbase is a phenomenal tool that lists, it's one of the most comprehensive company databases out there. You can sign up for like a free trial of their pro account to do advanced searches to find companies by funding stage, like team size, revenue, location, industry. You can find their website, LinkedIn, the founders, everything. Crunchbase is like the place to go. With that said, it is a pretty complex tool. So what I have been working on is I've scraped a bunch of this data legally. I paid for it. And I'm organizing it in a way that makes it far easier to tell what the culture of the company is like, and it comes with some pre-sorted options. So feel free to hit me up if you would like access to this. We can talk about that. Instead of filling out generic job applications on these companies' websites or on these job boards, these generic job applications are boring, impersonal, repetitive, and uncreative. It's a rare job application that asks you for actually interesting things. Instead of focusing on the job applications, focus on connecting with the decision makers at these companies. This sort of starts to dabble into networking and dabbles into how if you run this process, you won't have to job hunt again. The leaders at these organizations are the people with whom you should be forming real relationships, one-to-one relationships. They are the people with the power to hire you opportunistically, to create job openings for you if the company doesn't have one already. They are the people who can actually talk the talk with you if you're looking to do a particular type of role. And I promise you, like, a lot of people that I talk to think that, these people will find it annoying that you're reaching out directly, but it's actually not the case. I can tell you it sucks to review hundreds of resumes and cover letters that all look the same and don't give you real insight into the candidates. And so focusing on connecting with the decision makers works much better. Companies that aren't massive corporations or tiny garage startups will have a place on their website featuring their team members like this. They sometimes include contact information, like in this case, Trainual, but in most cases, you'll still have to use a tool to find the email addresses of the individuals you'd like to reach out to. And again, I promise you, people don't hate this. People like personalized reach outs. We'll talk about that more in a second. But the good email finding tools to use are snov.io, the one that I've got up here. There's one called Email Hunter, there's Rocket Reach, and there's a million more. If you Google email finder, Chrome extension, or similar Google search, like, you're definitely not going to run out of options. So use one of these tools to find the email addresses of the person that is the right person to reach out to, whether that be the head of the sales department if you're trying to get in sales, or the CEO of the company straight up, or COO, etc. If you can't find the team members on the company website, you can almost always find the people that you're looking for by going through the company's employees on LinkedIn. Every LinkedIn company page lists the employees. You can see who you're connected to, etc. And by clicking here, you'll see the list of employees, at which point you can reach out personally on LinkedIn, and we'll talk about how to reach out specifically. On a high level though, I just want to highlight that if anybody here is in sales, this process is going to sound pretty familiar, or if anybody's ever tried to get their own clients for their own business or anything like that, this is how salespeople find their clients. They start with a list of leads. In your case, these are all the companies that you could possibly work for, let's say in a specific industry. And then you boil it down to your top 10, the ones that you're most excited about, because those are the ones that are going to make this job hunting process not feel like a slog. And those are the ones that, regardless of what happens within each of those potential job opportunities, you will be connecting with people working in those companies and forming relationships that last you your entire career. So boiling it down to the top 10 or 15, whatever companies that you find most interesting, and starting there. You can always go beyond that, but starting with those. These are your prospects, and you're going to run them through an email outreach campaign where your goal is simply to start a conversation. You're not trying to get a job. You are trying to start a conversation and see if there are opportunities for you to contribute your knowledge and your skills to the organization. Now, most of the time, when you cold email people, they're busy and they didn't plan on talking to you that day. Some may reply that they're interested and you continue the conversation with them. Others reply that they're not interested, so you opt them out. And for everyone else who didn't reply, you follow up after a couple of days. Again, most people that I talk to think that people perceive this as an annoyance, but actually people in the business world really appreciate when you follow up. It shows that you care and are serious about your career and finding opportunities to contribute to the world. Again, some people will reply that they're interested and some will respond that they're not. No problem. Keep the conversations going with the ones who are, and keep following up with the ones that don't respond. This process is one of two top priorities in this process until you're hired. And even when a conversation doesn't turn into a job offer, like I said earlier, you're still winning in other ways, like forming new relationships with people working in companies and industries that you find exciting. You never know what these people will need in 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years. And this is the meat and potatoes of long-term career building and not having to job hunt again. Also, if you're listening closely, you're learning. You're getting lots of helpful feedback, both stated and unconscious feedback on how to improve your skills, your outreach, like your sales pitch, and everything. And finally, you're sometimes lucky enough to earn warm introductions to other work opportunities that you might not have found elsewhere. Remember, something like 85% of jobs, some large percentage of job opening needs that organizations have, are filled through their warm network, through warm introductions. And so really the optimal way to basically play the long-term career building game is to build that network, again, through focusing on people working in companies and industries that you find interesting, because you will connect with them better and it won't feel like networking and exchanging business cards. You get it. Now, through this outreach process, it is very common for us to want to talk about ourselves and what we want. I'm looking for a job in X, Y, and Z. I have 3 years of experience or 10 years of experience. I blah, 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 blah. That doesn't make people want to listen and get to know you. And if you've ever read of or heard the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, this is like the number one takeaway from that book. Focus on why you're excited about them, their company, their product, their mission, and how you think you can help them with their goals and challenges. This consultative approach, this I'm invested in what you're trying to do and I think I could help in X, Y, Z ways. The important thing here is to not be generic about this. Be specific. You like their product? Why? What about the product do you like? You think they have a super inspiring mission? What is it about the mission that's inspiring to you? Hiring managers tell me this constantly. They would much rather have someone less experienced who's deeply motivated by the company, hungry to learn quickly. You get it. I love this, so I'm leaving it up for a few seconds. Okay, so thinking about your target companies and what they want, which is probably a thriving business, the successful pursuit of a particular mission or objective, that usually means getting more customers, making their customers happier, building their team and making their employees happier, creating better content, having smoother operations, having more accurate financial records. Like literally whatever you do, whatever your trade is, whatever you're interested in, there are always ways that you can help companies that you're excited about. Now, in order to get them to reply and take you seriously, you have to convince them that you can help them in those ways. And you don't have to convince them 100%. You just have to convince them enough to want to learn more and talk to you. So instead of relying on your resume to get you these interviews and to position you as this strong candidate, which unless you have a very linear career that spans 20 years in a specific field, and you've been working your way up through the ranks of marketing or whatever it may be, the resume is not going to work very well for you. It's a static, outdated format that everyone only uses because that's how things were done this past century. Instead, focus on proving your abilities in a better format that makes your worth obvious. Again, regardless of what kind of work you do, from design to finance, from working on computers to working with your hands, there's always a better way to show off than with a resume. Could you imagine if brands tried to get you to buy their products by handing you lists of reasons to buy them? No, they inspire you with marketing. And you have to inspire confidence in others if you want to win opportunities. In practice, that could look like having a strong portfolio of the work that you've done, any kind of sample work, whether it be written case studies documenting the results that you've gotten in your past roles, or just like the work that you've done in your past roles. Also testimonials from folks you worked with. So LinkedIn recommendations are super, super powerful. But if you haven't done the type of work that you want to get hired for, then you need to be willing to offer some free work or a trial project to prove yourself. Like Jonathan Williams here, this was a job seeker that I worked with while I was at Crash. He showed that not only he could write well, but also that he understood what kinds of content this target company's customers might value, ChartHop's customers. And this stuff really works. He wrote a customer-ready blog post and gave it to ChartHop, and the CEO of this company responded, "No need to apply through AngelList. You caught my attention more this way. The article was a great touch. Not enough people put specific effort into applications." Jonathan earned an interview straight with the CEO in this process, and they hired him. They didn't even ask him for his resume. So regardless of how you choose to prove yourself, the point is, don't limit yourself to this decades-old, expired format, this relic of the 20th century. Yes, some companies will ask for it, and it is a good idea to have one that is updated, but don't limit yourself to it just because that's what most companies are asking for. You have the entire realm of digital media at your disposal. So challenge yourself and use it. You'll thank yourself every time you win an interview in this process. Now, as you win more interviews faster in this way and start more conversations that are more exciting, instead of interviewing as a candidate, which we all tend to do, where you're fielding a bunch of questions from them and feel a ton of pressure to like prove yourself and perform well, focus on actually qualifying them as an opportunity like a consultant does. Qualifying means you're confirming that they represent a serious opportunity for you, that you think you can genuinely help them, and that you believe that you want to work with them. This looks like having a genuine two-way conversation in the Zoom era or in person, where you ask them about their goals and challenges. You can offer ideas and suggestions, and ultimately the goal of the conversation being to determine whether you believe you're capable of helping them and whether you're interested in working with them based on the vibe that you get. Approaching it from this direction takes the pressure off of you to like perform a certain way and allows you to develop rapport with the hiring manager, who may end up actually being your boss. It puts you more in control of the process and also makes you seem more impressive as sort of a byproduct, make them take you more seriously as a result. So I've built a template for running interviews like a consultant. You can find it on my website, which I will send to you in the follow-up email. And I have lots more resources, career resources on there as well. Now, at the end of each interview, instead of waiting on them for next steps, which again, we all tend to do, it feels stressful, it's out of your control, and it often leads to sounding desperate when you follow up with them. Hey, what's happening? Is like, are we still, take ownership of the next steps. So through this interview process, at the end of the interview, you thank them for their time. And if you believe that you can do the job and you want to move forward with this company, let them know that you'll follow up with a simple proposal of how you'd like to approach your first 90 days on the job. Depending on how entry level you are or how senior level you are, this will be more strategic or more tactical, but it just gives you control over the conversation moving forward and shows that you take initiative in your work. It's incredibly powerful and really makes people want to take you seriously and work with you in some capacity. Now, with all that said, it's important to remember, even if you're super excited about a certain opportunity and it seems to be going well, do not put all of your eggs into that one basket, because you never know what could happen. There are many reasons why you still might not be selected, even when you follow this process. Budgets could change, pandemics could spread across the globe, you get it. So if anything goes wrong and all of your eggs are in one basket, you'll be left scrambling for other options and really stressing out, and that's just not worth it for you. So instead, focus on repeating this process with at least 10 other companies, which guarantees that you get at least one opportunity to work with one of them, if not multiple, which you can then leverage against each other during negotiations if these are full-time job offers. Now, we could do a whole separate workshop on salary negotiation, and Amalvita may have in the past, and we probably will again, so I'm not going to get into negotiations today. I'll stop here. Just remember that if you take only one lesson away from this presentation, it's that this classic job hunting process And by the way, I want to call out the scene from the movie. I know he's not job interviewing in this, but he is interviewing for his own job. Anyway, the classic job hunting process is not built to accurately measure the value that you can create for these organizations. They're not using the right filters to measure your potential. That's incredibly important to understand. They are not filtering in the right ways. This system is built to meet spec. It's built to find compliant factory workers who won't cause any trouble, but we're not working in factories anymore, and you're not a compliant factory worker. You're a thinking, creative, passionate human being, so we need to show that in how you job hunt. Instead of focusing exclusively on open job listings that you find on job boards, focus your time on energy and companies that inspire and excite you, the ones that make you want to do the extra work and the research and reach out and getting involved. Those are the ones that make job hunting not feel like a slog. And instead of waiting for an opening to submit an application, connect directly with their leaders, their decision makers, the people with the authority to hire you because you can help them achieve their goals, not because they were advertising a job opening. And instead of sending in your resume, hoping they'll see something that excuses your lack of experience or having to explain why you took 2 years off or blah, 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 blah. Just focus on proving your abilities to do that job. Prove it yourself by looking for opportunities to create value for them and not waiting for permission to do it. This entire process is about taking control of your job hunt and helping you build a career that makes you love your life. That's why we're called ALV Vida. And I'm just one career coach. This is something that I've learned. This process is something that I've learned from the past 2 years that I've been working in the careers space. But we have a whole team of amazing coaches who can help you take control of your career, life, health, beyond. And I wanna reiterate, because I have a lot of conversations with people who aren't sure about coaching. So coaching isn't just about getting you the big win, that job offer. It's more about helping you correct your form along the way and build your roster of teammates in your life, and also be a supporting presence at your side every step of the way as you build a career, a life, and a legacy worth looking back on. So reach out if you want to chat about your goals to see if coaching is right for you. We are running a promo right now for 25% off the first month if you sign up by May 15th. That's a Mother's Day promo. I'm excited to take your questions now. We're going to open it up for Q&A in just a couple of minutes. Please, again, ask your questions. I would love to hear them and just jam about specific situations or whatever it may be. Thank you so much for tuning in for this presentation.
I love it. Oh my gosh. So the chat's been incredibly quiet, which makes me super nervous. So I want to know how everybody is feeling, because Jeremy just flew through a ton of amazing content. And I know it's definitely different than the traditional, exactly to his point, find a job board, send in your resume, all those things. What do you guys think about this? What kind of questions? Is this something that you've tried before? Have you seen success? So Lisa says she really enjoyed this. What do you guys think? Because I know this is pretty far out of the box, but also very close to kind of our process that we definitely like to encourage folks to work through here at ALV Vida.
Glad to
so what do you guys think?
Resonating with it.
Yeah, I love you guys. I love that you guys are liking this.
Okay, glad to hear that from Lisa. Hadn't tried this previously, but is going to do so. I was about to ask to everybody else, putting my coach hat on here for a minute, like, who's actually gonna like follow this process? Like, if this sounds good to you, are you going to follow this approach? Because it can feel like the wrong things to work on. To some people, at least, that's the feedback that I've gotten from some people. And it's easy to sort of default back to what we're used to or what we think is like the right approach. But yeah, I'm curious to hear like who's going to actually execute this process. And I'm happy to, by the way, go back to any of the specific slides depending on questions. Yeah.
So just going to jump in. Yes, we will be sharing the recording. We will not be sharing the slides. Okay. Jeremy, sorry, take it back.
Yeah.
They were asking Crunchbase.
Yeah, so somebody asked me a direct question. Beth Miller asked, "Can you talk more about what kind of proposals to send a corporate contract? A corporate contact." So I'm gonna be straight up and say this process works across the board, but corporate tends to be a little harder simply because there's so much red tape. They have a hiring process that they have to go through. Um, yes, ultimately they still decide who they want to work with, and so this process may uh, it may not be as much of a fast lane if you're trying to get into corporate organizations, but it can still work for sure because the principles are still applicable. And in terms of a proposal to send to a corporate contact, the proposal is kind of the same thing. Like I mentioned, it's regardless of the type of organization that you're looking at getting involved with. They have specific goals, whether that be to grow the user base or to grow revenue or to increase their brand awareness or to increase their NPS score, customer satisfaction score, whatever those things may be, as they relate to the type of work you want to be doing, your proposal should center around those goals, which you identify during the interview with the hiring manager or with the person, not with a recruiter, with the person within the organization that can actually speak to those goals. Your proposal focuses around those goals and tactically how you believe you can make those goals a reality, how you can achieve those goals or overcome those challenges based on your knowledge of the space, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, I'm getting whoo! All right, it's starting to come in. Crunchbase. Sorry. Okay, can I talk about Crunchbase again? Yes, real quick. Crunchbase.com, one of the largest databases of company information, company data, where you can run advanced searches to find Los Angeles-based health tech companies, or not even necessarily tech companies, but I'm just giving an example. Fully remote software companies with 500 to 1,000 employees, making at least 10 million a year in revenue. You can run these advanced searches and you can find all of the data on the founders of the company, the company's website, LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. But also like some more advanced metrics. So crunchbase.com. There are tons of resources out there on how to use it, and you can do a free trial if you want to try it. Nicole says it feels a bit weird for the initial cold outreach, but everything is worth trying. Yeah, it does feel weird when you're not used to reaching out cold to people. It definitely feels weird. So I'm just gonna hold space for the fact that it feels weird to do cold outreach, and just like it can feel weird to do anything new, as you start getting those reps in, getting some rejections and getting some positive responses, it will feel less weird. Mark, I do use this approach with all of my clients. Right now, my coaching clients are coming through Ama La Vida, which is fantastic. One of the reasons I choose to be a part of this awesome team and company. But as far as the consulting work that I do in marketing and design and stuff, this is how I find my clients. If it's not through Warm Network, it's through looking up specific companies that I think I can add value to and that I find exciting based on the type of work that they're doing. And I just reach out to start a conversation, compliment them on the progress they've made so far, and try to understand kind of where they're at and what their priorities are. And that's how I've gotten my clients. One client turned into a full-time job for the past year. That was Crash. They were a client before they were a full-time job. Okay. Scrolling. Yeah, scary to implement. Cold emailing is scary to implement for sure. So that is one of the things that I find myself revisiting often with my my coaching clients here at Ama La Vida is sort of getting over the hurdle of outreach. And again, that cold pitching, that cold outreach is the single most critical way that this process is successful. So if you find that feels scary or that makes you nervous or just like feels weird to do, I've got a resource again on my website, which we'll email you afterwards, on like with some templates, some outreach templates to help you kind of think through how to approach that initial conversation. But also, like, coaching is really helpful. Like, that's, I would say that I spend probably a third of my time on coaching sessions helping people think through how they're going to reach out and like what angle they're going to take, and also giving lots of feedback to my clients on email when I ask them to send me their first few reach out messages via email to me first, as if I'm the hiring manager, and then I can respond, correct their form a little bit like I mentioned, tell them to remove half of what they said because you can say that stuff later. And it's important to just optimize for getting a response at the beginning and making them curious enough to learn more and to have a conversation. Okay, somebody in New York City, you said entrepreneurial at the beginning, considering not working for others. Do you have workshops for those wanting to venture for themselves? I would love to do an Ama La Vida workshop on entrepreneurial career paths. So the answer is, let's do it.
And Jeremy, I'm going to jump in because I did reply on that also. We have a group. I don't know your gender, but or how you identify, but we have a group at Ama La Vida that was started by our founder called Founding Females, and I dropped a link in the chat. And we have a ton of resources around starting your own business, and it's a really great small community. It used to be, so the link is a couple links up from the last one in there that I just dropped in. So we don't, to Jeremy's point, we don't have any workshops on this yet. It is definitely something that you can work with a coach on. So I dropped the link for a free consult strategy session so that we can talk to you a little bit more if you want something more personalized. And then if you're really looking for like, no, I want a group, Founding Females is a great place to start. So you can sign up at the link that I dropped in the chat. And we have our newsletter for that is going out tomorrow. So now's the time to jump in on that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Mary, moving overseas at the end of the year and feel like this process will help you ID organizations and positions that you could add value to. 100%. Crunchbase has data on companies all over the world. And they're not the only one. Again, there's another one called PitchBook, and there's, I think, a couple of others. But yeah, they're all over the world for sure. Josh, thanks for the kind words. I'm glad that it feels exciting. Okay, question from John Spanier. I'm a senior person in my field. I'm worried about losing benefits that I have from my seniority. Any advice about how to factor this in when reaching out to companies? Libby, to the best of your knowledge, or John, if you can follow up on that, I'm not sure what you mean by losing benefits that you have from your seniority. Do you think that he means not like healthcare and like those kinds of benefits, but like seniority status?
Yeah, I mean, I know sometimes if you've been with, so that was John. Was that John who said that? John, feel free to come off mute if you'd like.
Yeah.
We'll give you a second to maybe find your mute button.
Hey, this is John.
Hey.
Yeah, that's you hit the nail on the head. I'm in a, it's a reasonably large corporation. I'm a senior associate headed towards, I could be a principal next year. I probably would be if we hadn't hit this pandemic thing. Yeah, and so like if I go to another company, my fear is like I kind of have to start riding that ladder again. And but there may be, I've seen people successfully negotiate and navigate kind of keeping some of that seniority. I just am not quite sure how it happens.
Do you mind me asking, John, what field are you in?
Architecture.
Architecture. Okay. Just because sometimes that makes a difference.
Yeah. And
Jeremy?
when you're referring to the benefits, it sounds like you're just saying like you would want to move laterally. You wouldn't want to like go back down. You would want to maintain like the level of work that you're doing from a seniority perspective. Is that right?
Correct. And there are, financial benefits. So you end up as a principal, you are kind of you're a stockholder.
That's right.
And it makes a difference in terms of like your end of the year package.
Yeah, for sure. So salary compensation, compensation again, is something that we'll have to dive into more when we do like a negotiation workshop specifically. But on a high level, to specifically answer your question, any advice about how to factor in not losing those benefits and that seniority when reaching out to companies, the answer is that if you are capable of delivering senior level strategy and leadership to the organization that you're in right now, then you're capable of doing it to other organizations as well. And when we are confident in the value that we bring to the table, we can more easily state our terms, and of course try to play nice and find something that works for it. Like, it has to be a win-win or it's not a successful negotiation. But yeah, like you get to set your rates, you get to define your role and the specific type of work that you want to be doing. And companies are allowed to want that or to not want that, and to want to compensate you in that way or not. And so I'm working with a couple clients right now who are like you in senior levels of their work. And it is so tempting to, like, especially if you're like sort of feeling urgency around finding a job, it is so tempting to trade off, finding something a little bit lower level where you can get in more easily. But the fact that you don't want to do that is reason even more not to allow yourself to drop in seniority. Again, the thing to keep in mind is, based on everything that you know in your role in the world of architecture as a senior level leader in that industry, you can create your strongest contributions to other companies are at that level, as opposed to production level work. And so in those conversations that you have with other potential partners, clients, employers, really staying true to the fact that that's what you're looking for. And if you're looking for partner status in the organization, if you're looking for an ownership stake in the company, that's important to state as well. It may not be something that they can do right away, some kind of vesting schedule or whatever. But like, talk about leveling up, man. Like, that's awesome. And like definitely ask for those things and focus on the ways in which you can create the most amount of value as a senior level leader that you are. And the conversations will center around that as opposed to, centering around, like, you'll have the right conversations in that way. I hope that answers your question. That was a little messy.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mark, is this corporate, i.e. established companies versus startups? Here's what I'll say about that. Companies under 100 employees are not federally regulated to employment regulations, so they don't have to follow the rules nearly to the employment rules nearly to the degree that companies above 100 employees must. The other thing about startups is that there are pre-product market fit startups. Those are unstable and uncertain. And there are post-product market fit startups. They have found the product that the market will pay for, and they are either profitable or on track to profitability. And those companies, regardless of size, are very good bets, whether you're looking to put $1,000 into them as an angel investor, or spend 5-10 years of your career there, or just work with them as a client. So from that perspective, this process works best with companies that have a more modern culture, that are willing to bend the rules, bend their hiring process for the right people. And often those tend to be younger companies that have not been around for 50 years. But it's certainly not like, there are exceptions to that rule. And we've seen clients get hired at what I would call legacy corporations through this process, simply because the corporation had the right culture, and they do have the right filters. Like I mentioned earlier, they do have the right filters to identify, the individuals with the most potential. So it can work for both. It works best with companies that have a better culture, which, let's be honest, I would rather work for. I don't know about you. Okay. What is my take on cover letters? Yes, thank you so much. So this presentation didn't actually cover that much about the outreach itself. Cover letters are a way to sort of introduce yourself to the party on the other end of the table. And the mistakes that people make around cover letters are, one, making it way too freaking long, and two, not making it specific enough to the company that you're trying to that you're reaching out to. So the rule of thumb is, if you could copy and paste the cover letter and replace the company name, or if it says "to whom it may concern" at the top, like, rule of thumb, if you could duplicate that and send it to someone else with very little work, it's not the best cover letter. It's not going to work as well for you. And when I talk about doing cold email outreach, I'm talking about sending cover letters in an email body, because that's what it is. You're introducing yourself, you're expressing excitement about the company, you're expressing the fact that you believe there might be an opportunity to work together, and you'd be curious to learn more about them, their challenges, their goals, their priorities, to see if there is actually a fit. So the answer to my take on cover letters, yes, companies value and read cover letters when they are specific, when it's obvious that you could not have sent this to 10 different companies just swapping out the name at the top of each one. When the cover letter is obviously written for that particular company, they value it so much more. What's up, Leandro? I'm so glad you could make it. Feel the old ways are dragging me out and keeping behind. Would love to hear from others to see what your experience has been. Yeah, I would love to have group discussion, however we can facilitate that. Okay, Beth again. If you're in the beginning of an interview process with a company you're really excited about. Sorry, I'm going to start over. If you are in the beginning of an interview process with a company you're really excited about, can you use the same proposal approach to set yourself apart from other candidates? The answer is yes, but let me think about this critically for 1 second to give you a good answer. Beginning of the interview process, a company you're excited about, proposal approach. Yeah, absolutely. So the proposal approach works no matter what stage you're at. And in fact, you can't do it too early, because if you try to think about, if you went to a doctor and before even like diagnosing you, before even like trying to understand what's wrong, they gave you a prescription for something, you'd be like, what the heck? Like, I don't, like, how do you know that this is actually what I need? You haven't even spent any time diagnosing my condition. Well, in the same way, you can't propose anything too early, unless you're just taking a swing. Like Jonathan, his example, like, he knew that ChartHop was looking for somebody to create blog content, among other things, create customer success resources. And so he wanted to prove his ability to do that, because he was so entry level and had such practically no experience, that he needed to really come out of the gates swinging hard. And so I guess my answer is, if you're very inexperienced in the domain that you're trying to get hired for, you can come out with some sort of proposal if you've seen a job opening, or if you've just seen, the company leaders or whatever tweeting or posting on LinkedIn about how they're looking for X, Y, or Z, then like that gives you some indication of how you could approach them with a proposal. Otherwise, it has to come later in the process. And I'll also say, if you're more senior level, if you're looking to do more senior level work, get hired for more senior level positions, then you have to have some of those deeper conversations with the hiring manager, with the head of whatever department, in order to be able to craft an effective proposal. So if you're at the beginning of the interview process, like, awesome. Use that first interview as an opportunity to learn about their goals, challenges, priorities, brainstorm with them, show that you have some knowledge of what you're talking about, or that you're just willing to learn really fast, because you're so excited by that company. And then after that first interview, again, control that follow-up and send them just a proposal is just, here's what I would like to do for you. And it can be as deeply strategic and tactical or as high level as you want to make it. And as is appropriate for based on the conversation that you had. But it doesn't have to be this crazy intense thing like when you see proposals created by agencies or whatever. You're just proposing a plan of action for them. And that's what I mean by the term proposal. All right, last question so far. Beth, I landed a job at my dream place, but the culture is not inclusive. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm worried I can't bring my best self due to that. How can I handle that? If you feel like you could have a conversation with somebody high up in the company who could influence the culture and that you believe would listen, then I would aim to get a meeting with that person. Whoever you think could be your best ally towards shifting the culture towards more inclusivity, whether that's the head of people or the head of HR or the CEO himself or herself, like whoever you just believe would be your best ally towards making the culture more exclusive, it's worth a shot. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, or if you don't believe there's anybody that will listen, or if you, for any other reason, just don't want to undergo that process, then unfortunately, like you got to jump ship and you got to find a more inclusive culture. And in your next, job hunt, in your next process, I would say to the best of your ability in the interview stages, try to glean what the culture is like. And I will say one of the ways that you can do that, because it's incredibly hard to understand a company's culture from the outside, but one of the ways that you can do that is to reach out to employees on LinkedIn, send them a connection request with a personalized message. Hey Libby, I saw that you work at La Vida. I'm really interested in joining. There's a couple job openings, but regardless, I'm curious to learn a little bit more about La Vida's culture. Is that something that you'd be comfortable speaking to, just to help me understand what it's like there? That was wordy, but you get the idea. Reaching out to individuals at the company who are not necessarily the leaders, just everyday employees, to get their take on what the culture is like can be a pretty effective way to catch those red flags before you invest all of your time and energy into that company. So I'm sorry that that is the case for you. I hope that you can rise and find somebody with power within the organization that also sees that issue and that is willing to, work towards making the company more inclusive as a culture. And if that's not the case, know that there are so many companies that do have that inclusive culture. Don't fear losing this particular company just because of that.
And two things that I want to follow up with on that. We have a couple great additional webinars, because that was such good advice, Jeremy. And I totally would have responded to that message if you had sent it to me. So just for context, but we have some really great webinars that are all up on YouTube for free. I'll make sure that we send out a link to the ones that I'm thinking of in particular that specifically talk about informational interviewing and optimizing using LinkedIn. Because to this approach, LinkedIn is such a powerful tool. So we'll definitely make sure that we include that. I see we've only got a couple minutes left. Any last questions?
Yeah, at this point, I would say feel free to unmute yourself if you have a burning question. But thank you everyone for joining. It's a pleasure for me to talk about this process. Like Libby said, the presentation itself will be made available on La Vida's YouTube channel. And the slides will not, although obviously the slides are inside of the presentation. And I'm also available. You can reach out to me via email, jeremy@alvcoaching.com. If you have specific questions that you'd like to answer, or honestly, I would say ask the questions in the comments of that YouTube video and I will answer them there so that other people can benefit from them as well. That would be ideal. Yes, thank you, Libby. Okay, Sharon, last question and then let's get out of here. I had an interview recently and the hiring manager said that the ideal candidate needed to have thick skin. Do you think that's a red flag? No, I don't think that's a red flag. I see Leandro says yes. No, I mean it's fair. Like we like the thing about a red flag is that it is very subjective, right? So like if you don't want to work with people who want you to have thick skin, then like it's a red flag for you, and that's okay. And that's part of this process is like self-discovery, learning the things that you want and don't want in a company culture, in the nature of the work that you're doing. For me, I don't personally like having thick skin doesn't like evoke any kind of like defensive response in like my emotional response system. So I don't feel that it's a red flag. I would seek to understand exactly what they mean about having thick skin. Like, okay, what do you mean by that? And like, why do you feel like it's important to have thick skin at this organization? Well, because we're very blunt about how we give feedback and blah 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 blah. That will probably help add context to that term and to that statement that that person made, to help you basically decide whether you want to move forward or not. But objectively speaking, I don't think it's a red flag. I think it is a data point to consider whether you're comfortable working at an organization that values thick skin or not. And also, the last thing I'll say about that is that I think objectively it is valuable to develop thick skin, but it should not be like, don't beat yourself up if you're sensitive. So many people are sensitive, and it's a beautiful part about life, and companies should also be aware of that. And leadership is about adaptability and sensitivity. So if people like require you to have thick skin, then it may not be the culture for you.
Yeah. I love that. I love this. I'm so excited. And thank you, Al, so much for your questions. I know a lot of people are dropping because we're a minute over. We will be sending out the recap to this amazing webinar. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for sharing your process and your insights. Like I said, we'll be sharing out the recording, which will be up on YouTube as well. And I'll make sure that the links to all of the webinars that we talked about Founding Females, that'll be included. Jeremy's got some great resources that will be included. So keep an eye on your inbox. That'll be going out. I believe we send those out within 24 hours. So it'll be coming out tomorrow. You guys are awesome. And yeah, so great to connect with everybody. This was such a pleasure. Jeremy, great job. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. All right. Let
All
it
right.
go.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Libby. See you soon.